Year is a Kachin Limud Torah, Betwat and Limud Chassidus. The Rebbe says one of the Sichos Chayel, that from Chayel to Rosh Hashanah is the Aveda of Tshuva in the entire year and Chana for the coming year. The Rebbe said, but from Chayel to Rosh Hashanah, the Ikar Aveda, the Ikar Tshuva, the Ikar Chana is the Inyan of Limud Chassidus. Limud Chassidus is the Zohar Tvei, and when a Bacher, any Chassid, Fat a Bacher, Kachin Chassidus, it gives him Chayis in all under inyan. Fine. Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Chol Yis b'Shabbos, and you can see over here in the Rebbe Kovetz, and it's also brought here in the Hagoyas, right, where the Rebbe added this point. It's very interesting. The Michtadim Klolim, so the Rebbe would be magia the letters in three languages: in Yiddish, Lashon Kodesh, English. Usually English was the last. Now the Rebbe would be magia each one. So, both in Kloli, a lot of the Hagoyas were to make sure that translation is correct. But every once in a while, the Rebbe would add something in the translation that's not in the original. So you look at the original letter that you have here in the back, you have the letter in Yiddish, and the same thing you see the letter in Lashon Kodesh, it's missing this word, this diuk. And dafka in the English, the Rebbe was moisif this inyan. And the Nekuda is that the Rebbe is speaking about the Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shchol Yis b'Shabbos, that the head of the incoming year is Shabbosdik. So the Rebbe wrote in, is Shabbos and makes all the year Shabbosdik. Which is better than the Toichem, but the Rebbe spells it out very clearly over here. As the Rebbe will refer to such a year as a Shabbos Dike Yar. It's not Stam Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shechol Yis b'Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah is the Chareishis, is the Rosh, the head, what gives Chayis in the entire year. So the Ganze Yar is a Shabbos Dike Yar. The Rebbe would shturim about Shabbos Dike Yar in many different ways. Here we're going to touch upon the way it was Tafshin Nun, which was the last one for Chav Zayin Oder. Already at the end of Elul Tafshin Mem Tes, and then Tishrei Tafshin Nun. That's throughout the whole year Tafshin Nun. The Rebbe shtur in Shabbos Dike Yar, and Shabbos Dike Yar, the Rebbe would speak about the Inyan of Shabbos Dike Yar, that Shabbos is the Inyan of Tainug. So it's a year that the Avodah has to be Metech Tainug, not stam from Kabbalah Seil or lower Keches of the Nefesh, Midras Moichin. The Avodah has to be Metech Tainug, and the Rebbe connected Tainug to Pnimis Torah. But then there's the Nekuda of Shabbos that we'll speak now and try to figure out what the Rebbe's Chiddush, the Rebbe's Gang. So there's a Maise gebracht in alles Sifrei Sipurim of Chassidim with different Gersoyes. For on the Shema Oizen, which is ganz meduyik, and it's from Mordechai Yoel, right? It's from Zalman Duchman, from Mordechai Yoel Duchman, and the Rebbe looked it over. So he has a very interesting pratim to this Maise. That Hillel Paritcher was in Lubavitch. And he gave to one of the Chassidim that came to visit him, he gave him a shtickle kugel. So the Chassid tells him, sorry, I don't eat kugel. I never eat kugel. So I cooked of him, and he says, you never eat kugel? What says? It's the Yedua, what the Alter Rebbe said, that eating kugel on Shabbos is poyel de zel binyanim of Tkiyas on Rosh Hashanah. And, right, basically implying Tkiyas on Rosh Hashanah you would never miss, yeah? So eating kugel on Shabbos, you tell me you never eat kugel, you have to eat kugel on Shabbos. So then he continued and said like this. That Alter Rebbe gefragt, in some Gersois, it seems that someone asked Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was asked, so why do we have to blow Tkiyas on Shabbos, on Rosh Hashanah? Let's just eat kugel. If kugel is poyel des elbe inyan, then Tkiyas shefer, let's just eat kugel. So the Alter Rebbe said, Ein echanami. Mezetoch of Rosh Hashanah Shechol Yis b'Shabbos, we don't blow Tkiyas and we eat kugel. That was the vart. So he said like this. He said the second half of the vart was derech hatzachos. He called it noivlis, a vertel. It was a vertel. Aber a vertel from Vemin from Alter Rebbe. In other words, on one it's a vertel. It's like divrei tzachos. It's from the Alter Rebbe. Aber the erste chelek, the first part, which is that eating kugel on Shabbos is poyel de zel binyanim. Sometimes it says the zel binyanim, sometimes it's mamtik dinim. But it does the same po'ola as tkiyas shofar. Azoy is the inyan. In other words, that part azoy is takadirin. The second part is a vertel, but the first part is the inyan. Now, versteht sich that a vertel from Alter Rebbe is eichet epis, yeah. But the shah is what's the pshat? So, I'm gonna say what the pshat is. Well, we'll see the way the Rebbe learns it in the Rebbe's Sichis, the Rebbe's Mamorim, the Rebbe's Igris. You get a nekuda what the Alter Rebbe was alluding to, and what's the vart? So in Chassidus, the sugya of Yom Tov Shashon Shcholis b'Shabbos, the sugya all the Rebbeim speak about it. There's many mamorim. There's already a maimer in Kutei Torah that Rebbe's always mitzayin to. And by all the Rebbeim, you have different mamorim. Biz, by the Rebbe Shmuel Avtzen English, you have Yom Tov Shashon Shcholis b'Shabbos, the Hamshich Samach Vav. Right, so Hamshich Samach Vav is a long Hamshich, which goes on for over 2 years, Samach Vav, Samach Zayin, into Samach Ches. And the whole Hamshich starts with the Shaila, Yom Tov Shashon Shcholis b'Shabbos. What's happening with Tkiyah Shofar? Right, so the Al Pi Nigla, we don't blow Shofar on Shabbos. Why? So Al Kapon, Lefi the Bavli. So he brings Gzeira Derabba. Right, there's a Gzeira that maybe the people will carry Hakoil Chayavim mit Tkiyah Shofar, Vein Hakoil Bekiyah mit Tkiyah Shofar. So there'll be those that go out and will forget and will be metaltel in order to figure out how to blow Shofar. But mainly we're mevatel the Tkiyah Shofar bepoil on Shabbos. Now, in Nigla Guf is a whole deal. What exactly is the pshat of this bittul? And God, the Rebbe himself in Shulchan Aruch and the Rebbe kochs in Igris and some of the Sichos the Rebbe brings it that according to the Alter Rebbe, Al Pi Nigla, the bittul mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar was not mitzad Gzeira Derabba. It's mitzad uvdin dechel. Alter Rebbe is very clear about it. It's mitzad uvdin dechel. The shaila is uvdin dechel should be doiche a mitzvah deraisa. So the Gzeira Derabba is a sniff. The Gzeira Derabba helps the Uvdin Dechil to be mevatel. L'poil in the Mamori Chassidus, we don't speak about the Uvdin Dechil. It speaks about this thing, of the Gzeira Derabba. Gopanis, that's all Pi Nigla. That's when we should have blew the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. L'poil we can mitzad the Gzeira, so we're mevatel it. In the places that there is no Gzeira, so therefore in the Beis HaMikdash there's Ein Shvus B'Mikdash. So Ein Shvus B'Mikdash, in the Beis HaMikdash we're to care the Shofar b'Shabbos. Comes Chassidus, and Chassidus fragt, that Tkiyah Shofar is such a meir mitzvah, such a heiche mitzvah, and the pu'ula that it does, that the Tkiyah Shofar is what brings the Eibishter's Malchus, binyan Malchus, it brings the Eibishter's Tainug in the Bria. So what happens on Shana Shcholis b'Shabbos? In other words, there's something fundamentally missing. How could such a thing be missing? It's not a var that, okay, we found the tchiyah, we found a tchiyah, a hutra, we found a way to mivatel the mitzvah. Like we're not oiver. Say there, but how does the oilamis, how are they niskayim? That's the shaila Chassidus asks. And that's the shaila of Samach Vav. Right? He asks it in the first maimer. Where does he give the answer? At the end of the hamshich, so basically he finished the hamshich, all the mamorim, and there's no answer. Right? It's not the first time you learn the Hemshich and you had a shadow in the beginning and you haven't necessarily found the answer. But here it's a ganze Hemshich which all ultimately revolves around this Ersha Shaila. There's no answer. After he finished the Hemshich, he added in Hashlama Sadrush after the last Maimer, printed at the end of Samach Vav, which was never said. Right? The Rebbe brings Shimon from the Shver that the Rebbe Sham never said this Maimer. He added, and that's a whole nice Maimer at the end, and nice out the pages. Where there he's Metaretz the Inyan. And what's the teretz? The teretz is in Kudas Advarim, where in the Sikh and Memtes, the Rebbe brings this whole sugya, Gan Samach Vav in one sif. The Rebbe brings this. So what does he bring? He brings the Nekud of the teretz Zazay. That on a regular Rosh Hashanah, in order for Binyan Malchus to happen, we need Avodas Adam Tkiyah Shofar. That's what brings the Tainug in the Melucha in Eilamus. On Shabbos, we don't need to be Ma'oyer the Eibusher's Tainug. Because Shabbos itself is the inyan of Tainug. What's Shabbos? Kivoi Shabbos mikol malachte. As K'mavor Barichas Chassidus, that Tainug comes when a person finishes an arbit, finishes a project, especially such an amazing project. Sheishes Meibreishis. Right, this is the project of all projects. And the Eibishter then looks back and sees, oh, Gemacht a Sheine Welt, a Teire Welt. There's a Tainug from the Shvis of Mimlacha, which is the Tainug from the Melacha that was done. There's two layers to this Tainug. There's the Tainug that the arbit take is kumin, it came out very nicely, and then there's pasha the etzem menucha is connected to time when a person's resting. There comes to zich, there's a tainug. So there's the menucha, there's that tainug. So Shabbos itself is the inyan of tainug, and that's why we rest on Shabbos also to connect to the Eibusher's tainug. So v'meila we don't have to be mamshich tainug through Tkiyah Shofar or mamshich tainug through Shabbos itself. Even without our avodah, Shabbos mekadsha v'kaima, unlike Yom Tov, that we're the ones that make Yom Tov, which therefore we say on Yom Tov mekadosh Yisrael v'azman, because we're the ones that kiveya Yom Tov by being kiveya the zman and the chadashim. Shabbos, the days of the week is not totally in our avodah. The Eibusher was kiveya the days of the week. Mekadsha v'kaima, the time that comes from mitzad atzmai, and that's it. So in Meila, where our avodah isn't needed, so that's it. That's kind of. This is the nekudah. Now, exactly the Havana. What are we mamshich on Rosh Hashanah? How Shabbos does this? So in different Mamorim, different Rabbeim, there's a different diuk, a different vord, a different Hagdara. In Samach Vav, there's a Meridik Arichus. But that's the Mahalach in Ganz Chassidus, from the Meir and Likkutei Torah till the Rebbe. The Rebbe's Sugi of Yom Tov Shashon Shcholis B'Shabbos starts where the regular Sugi in Chassidus finishes. Now, what's Pshat? There's Mamori, right? There's the Maimer here, Mem Gimel, which is Be'etzem, you could say the Rebbe's take, the classic take of Yom Tov Shashon Shcholis B'Shabbos. The Rebbe brings the Sugi that's in Chassidus, Bikram Yosef the Mamorim that's Tzemach Tzedek, and there's the other Maimer from Lamed Gimel. Even there, the Rebbe has his diyukim, but that's the general Mahalach, yeah, the general Mahalach, that on Shabbos, the Inyan tut sich up von sich allein. The Rebbe comes and asks, the Rebbe is bothered by one thing, and this Inyan you see already in the Igris before the Nesias, you see it in Sichas and Likkutei Sichas, you see it in different Mamorim, biz the Sicha Memtes. The Rebbe's Shaila is, say there, if the Shaila is how did Binyan HaMalchus happen on Rosh Hashanah Shcholis B'Shabbos, there's an answer. Shabbos itself did it, without Art Kiyashek. The Shaila is that when we learn the Sugi of Rosh Hashanah, and we understand what Rosh Hashanah is, the whole Yesoid of Rosh Hashanah is Avodas Ad. If Rosh Hashanah wasn't built on Avodas Ad, then Rosh Hashanah is on the wrong day. The Eivshar takes us out of Mitzrayim on Tesvav Nissen, and we celebrate Tesvav Nissen. The Eivshar, the Eivshar was Macher, the Chur Beis HaMikdash takes place on Tisha B'Av. We do Tisha B'Av. The Eivshar creates the world on Chafei Elul, we celebrate Aleph Tishrei. What's the Havana? Elamai, in all, and Rabbi Mamorim, and by the Rebbe, Befrat, in the Michtav Klali, when you go through any year, Michtav Klalim of the Rebbe, this is come out every Rosh Hashanah, Michtav Klali, the Chai Elul letter, the Chafei Elul letter, the letters leading up to Rosh Hashanah, always around this Nekuda. What's Rosh Hashanah? The importance, and how the whole world revolves around the human being. It's all about the person. It's all about Adam Rishon. He's the one that brings the world to Shleimus Habriya. Zayim Tchilas Masecha Zikaron Liyam Rishon. Zikaron Liyam Rishon, the first day of creation is Chafei Elul. Zayim Tchilas Masecha is Aleph Tishrei. Why? Because that's when Adam Rishon was created, and that's when he brought together all of the Nivroim and said, Boyo Nishtach v'Nichrad Lifnei Havai Yisenu. So that's when the kesher of the Oilimis and the Nivroim of the Oilam to the Eibishter starts. So that's what it's all about. It's all about Adam, and that's why and the Rebbe would always write about Rosh Hashanah, that a person has to take a stand, and it's all totally in a person. There's a letter, sometimes the early Chavs, I think it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Rebbe speaks about the importance of man, how a person could push it, the danger one person can bring to the world, and how one person could save the world. Right? That's what the Rosh Hashanah, Avodas Ad. So now we're coming and saying that Take Avodas Adam, and even before Avodas Adam, the Metzias Adam, man, is important to the whole general picture of Rosh Hashanah, and we're the ones that breathe our Mamlech Le'Eibishter, but that takes place in every 20 years, 15 out of 20 years. I'm sure there's some mathematician here that knows the numbers, how the Zmanim works. But every few years, right, we had Rosh Hashanah B'Shabbos just a few years ago. Before that we had 10 years without it. But every once in a while, your avodah is irrelevant. We don't need you, right? Rosh Hashanah B'Shabbos, it happens it happens on its own. The Eibishter himself creates the world. So how's that shaykh? In other words, where's the person in this? That's the yesod of the Rebbe's shaykh. The Rebbe asks in many different ways, in many different sichas and mamorim. Any time you'll learn the Rebbe's Torah on Rosh Hashanah B'Shabbos, it ends up going back to this nekuda. Was mit dem Mensch? Where's the person in this whole sugya? Now, you see one of the Fabringans, the Rebbe says, very interesting vart, Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe speaks about the way the sugya is in Hamshach Samach Vav. And Be'etzem, when you think about it, the Hamshach Samach Vav already takes us to this mahalach. Because what's the nekud of Samach Vav? Yom Rosh Hashanah Cholis B'Shabbos, he asks the question, what's with Kiyah Shoif? The answer is all the way at the end, that through that Rosh Hashanah Cholis B'Shabbos, it happens on its own, right? What's the shaykhus to the hemshech? It's like Pashut, it's nice bookends for the hemshech. The question in the beginning, question at the end. What's the hemshech of Samach Vav about? In 2 words. Hemshech Vav is Direch Tachtonim. Yeah, you learned any mime, definitely if you learned a mini hemshech or you learned the whole Samach Vav, it's all about Direch Tachtonim. That's the hemshech of Direch Tachtonim. So the whole hemshech is be'etzem. What's the hemshech? That the Eibishter brought us down into this world. Why? Because Nisav Kodesh Baruch Hu Liyis Lo Dira B'Tachtonim, and the Dira has to take place through Tachtonim. And And for those that are shtickle b'hamid and samach vav, that's the whole mahalech. The dafke, the person down here, and dafke teva, and not nes, and dafke mitzvahs versus Torah, and eved versus ben, and iskafye and bittul. Right? It's all about the avodah sod. So the whole hamshich is what? The importance of avodah sod making a dirah. But what's the question and answer that hold the whole hemshech together? That taka most of the time we have to make a dirah b'tachtonim. But on Rosh Hashanah Shchais b'Shabbos, nicht. The hemshech does it on his own. Versteht sich as nicht, right? So when you see it in the hemshech, when you see that word, you realize something's missing. So you're reading the Shlomas HaDerosh and episodes, and the Shaila, it screams out on its own, right? What's happening here? And you see taka in a few sichos the Rebbe kochs in this in. So Uya Shloimer that's where the Rebbe already sees, and that the Rebbe already sees this vart. In other words, we bring the sugya of Rosh Hashanah Shchais b'Shabbos, it becomes one with dirah b'tachtonim. And oy bazoi, avodah sa'adam is integral to the etzem havon of the whole sugya. Now, throughout the years, the Rebbe gave different biorim. I'll give a few biorim that some of them are here in this kuntris. This is the kuntris of the mamarim and sichos are given out. So first of all, this is very interesting. Rosh Hashanah Tafshin Yud, which is last Rosh Hashanah before the Stalkos of Friedrich Rebbe. So the Rebbe gave out a kuntris then, right? In the later years of Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe gave out kuntresim. That the mamar of the later years, right, after Tafshin Hey, that Friedrich Rebbe didn't speak. He spoke, but most people didn't understand, and he didn't say mamarim. And the mamarim then were kuntresim, where the Rebbe would prepare mamarim from earlier years, added Hisofis, Kitzurim, Hagoyes, given it to Friedrich Rebbe, until the last kuntris that came out before the Stalkos, Basi Lagani, right? And then the Rebbe Kabetzim continued giving out I remember the Friedrich Rebbe for another year, the Sefer Mamorim of Friedrich Rebbe, Tafshin Yud Aleph, right? A blue Sefer, the Friedrich Rebbe, Tafshin Yud Aleph. What's kuntresim, the Mamorim, the Rebbe continued giving out even afterwards. So that Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe gave out a Hemshech Rosh Hashanah Tzadik Beis, and the Maimer is Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shchais b'Shabbos. That was the Kviyas Tzadik Beis, that was the Kviyas Tafshin Yud. So the Rebbe gave out the kuntris, so the Rebbe printed the kovetz, and then the Rebbe sent it out to many people. When the Rebbe would send it out, with, so first of all, the Rebbe would add to the kovetz a Pesach Dover in the front, right, which we have many of those Pesach Dovers. Many of those Pesach Dovers ended up in Igros Kodesh, which the Rebbe would add his own, like the Risayros and Achana and his own inyanim. But besides for that, when the Rebbe would send it to different places, to different chassidim, the Rebbe would send it with a letter. As a Michtav Klali Prati. Michtav Klali, around then, Tafshin Tes, that's when Michtav Klali Prati started. The Rebbe would send every tkufah, sometimes every few weeks, sometimes every few months, a certain nusach. And this nusach, almost every letter that was sent to Chassidim, or to many Chassidim, would start with this nusach, and after that nusach, the Rebbe would add a few lines, what's going to get to this chassid, that chassid, the ladam in Ksaviyat. Here, in the last days of Elul, the Rebbe sent out this kuntris, this kovetz, and the Rebbe sent out 3 different letters to different chassidim. All of them are written to Vasik B'Chassid, Yisrael Elikim, Chulu Hari. That was a nusach when there was a nusach sent to many chassidim, not to a specific chassid. Nusach was Hari, Yud, and then the Rebbe, because the Yud is a ois that could change into any ois, right? And then the Rebbe would take the Yud and change it based off who that specific recipient is. So there's 3 letters, that's like one day after another, like Chaf Aleph El, Chaf Beis El, Chaf Gimel El, there's a few days in a row. And the Rebbe gives in each one a mahalach and the under Rosh Hashanah b'Shabbos. Some of these letters are printed in the back. Look at the sichos in a few places. So there the Rebbe speaks about the avodah, and the Matzah Shavah is there's always talking in the avodah of Rosh Hashanah b'Shabbos. What's the avodah? It's all about the avodah. So one of the places, in one of the letters, the Rebbe says a vart. The Rebbe says, so first, so the Rebbe asks a shayla. The Rebbe says, "Take Yom Rosh Hashanah b'Shabbos. It all happens me'atzmai." So the Rebbe says like this. We know in Chassidus that there's a maila in things that come l'mata l'maila, and there's a maila in yom l'maila l'mata. Yeah, b'lashon of the yem yom, hecher is, right, when tayir is. What's the hecher and tayir, right? Hecher is when it's from the Oib, and tayir is when it comes l'mata. Right? So when something comes, it's just the leila has a maila that it's blikvul, it's the Eir of the Eibishter, blikvul, maila l'mata. When it's l'mata l'maila, it's more connected to the person, it's more b'pnimius, it's more b'dirah b'tachtoinim. So we could see a maila in Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shchais b'Shabbos that it's no maila. But stuff it's missing the maila of tachtin. So first the Rebbe B'Kitzer gives us a very dakasdik avar. Then the Rebbe says Yesh lahamtik. The Rebbe says zavart. That sof we have to say that there is an kud of avodah as well, because we're missing on Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. Stuff and test. There's a kud of avodah. What's the avodah? The avodah is the Eibishter tells us don't blow on Shabbos. So there's the shlila. By not blowing on Shabbos, we're doing the Gzeres Chachamim, right? We're doing what the Eibishter wants from us. So we have a shaykhs that Tkiyas Shofar by not blowing shofar. Now, you hear this, it's betzim, you start learning the Sikha Memtes, it already has the nekude of what the Rebbe says in Memtes. The Rebbe doesn't go that far. Here the Vart is more simple. The Vart here the Rebbe says is, you could be Mekayim it through B'chayfen Chiyuvi, and Mekayim it B'chayfen Shlili. Right, it reminds there's a Vart the Rebbe says in the Sikha, the Rebbe speaks about what the Friedrich Rebbe brings when he speaks about the Meiser when he was in prison. So the Friedrich Rebbe, and they asked him, right, so Friedrich Rebbe when he went to prison, he took upon himself, he said he took a achlata, that he's not giving them any nesinas smokim, he's the boss over here, Eined Mulvade, there's no Menias Yikumen, Erfirta. So they asked him, on one of the stages, they asked him, do you know where you are? Like, you understand what's going on here? Like, who's the cop? Who's the, you know, who's who? Who came to, who's the prisoner and who's the... So he said, yeah, I know where I am. I'm in a place that's potter from mezuzah. I'm in a place that's potter from mezuzah. So the Rebbe had all arichis, right, but the Rebbe, every maisa of a Rebbe it's not stam a maisa. It's a halacha, it's a aveda, it's a whole... What's he trying to say? It's potter from mezuzah. Saying that was the only thing he could find the davar shebekdusha to say potter from mezuzah. Taka says potter from mezuzah, but why are you putting it out there in open? Like, what's the word? The Rebbe said the Friedrich Rebbe want the shmir of the mezuzah, because you know mezuzah brings shmir. So there's two ways how you get the shmir of the mezuzah: b'ayfen chiyuv, b'ayfen shlili. Either by having a mezuzah, or when Torah says not to have a mezuzah, so the shlila of having the mezuzah, and by saying that Torah is up as the place is potter from mezuzah, he was mamshich in the mezuzah. He connected this place to mezuzah by b'ayfen shlili. So that's the word that Rebbe says there. It doesn't make this connection. That's the word. It's a part that there is an avodah that we do what we're supposed to do by not blowing shofar. Then over here, there's a Sikha of Chelik Yudalit. This is the Sikha brought in the Koivitz right before the Sikha Memtes. And here the Rebbe says, the Rebbe says like this, that on Yom Shashash Cholis B'Shabbos, so we don't blow shofar the first day. So when we don't blow shofar the first day, how are all the Inyanim Nimshach? Mol Maila. Now, Kimeduber, when something's Nimshach Mol Maila, it's on a much higher level than when it's Nimshach Mol Mata. Because Mimakiv B'Yod, the Eibishter is doing it. When we do our Avodah, it depends on our Kavanah, on if we, you know, how a person can only be mamshich from his makir, but when the Eibishter is the one that's mamshich, it's the Eibishter himself. But then we see something interesting, that the second day Rosh Hashanah comes, and Rosh Hashanah is the only Yom Tiv that even in Eretz Yisrael, they do 2 days, and then we come and blow shofar on the second day. For the Shaila, why do we have to blow shofar on the second day? Meila, on a year that is 2 days, so you understand, you did the first day, you blew shofar, but it's a human being. There could be a chesaron. Let's do a second day. We'll have the milas of each one. But on Shabbos, when the Eibishter is the one, kiviyachol let's take care of shofar, the Eibishter is the one that's mamshich, mitzad atzmai, the tainig in the bria. So who needs the avodas on the second day? So the Rebbe says, Mikan lo manu, dafke Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos teaches us the importance of avodah more than any other year. That even at a time where everything's b'shleimus, and the Eibishter is mamshich everything mitzad atzmai. And now it's all good, it's all great, there's nothing missing. Right? Because a person can think, when is avodas adam needed? When something's missing. Right? So that the world's created the chaser, things are missing, and our avodah is to be mashlamit. That's the avodas adam, to be mashlam. But when things are perfect, who needs me? And that's the chiddush of Yom Shashan Shcholis B'Shabbos, that even when everything's perfect, because the Eibishter was mamshich, the avodah is so integral to the whole mission statement of Bria Sa'ilam and Kiyum Oilam Rosh Hashanah that we blow shofar on the second day. Right? So the Rebbe basically flips the script. That what's the message of Rosh Hashanah Shcholis B'Shabbos? Avodah. More than a year that it's not on Shabbos. By being mechayev us to blow shofar on the second day.
Aliyah Sa'ilamis b'derech klal, right? Let's say Shabbos has Aliyah Sa'ilamis. Aliyah Sa'ilamis also is an avodah on Shabbos. So what's the question?
No, it happens on its own. We also have our avodah of la'anigas Shabbos, chulu.
Yeah.
As you're saying that on a regular Shabbos we have to do our avodah, even though the Indian happens on its own, we still have to do our avodah. Right. So that teaches us that message.
So that teaches us if the
right, so in truth,
with avodah of Shabbos, which is taking place instead of the shofar, comes out like it's not potter from us doing an avodah. We still have to do that.
Right, but nevertheless, we see that on Shabbos that falls on Rosh Hashanah, we don't blow shofar. That means that the achtara of the Eibishter, the taining of the Eibishter and the bria that the Eibishter recommits to dir b'tachtonim and bria sa'ilam happens without us. So if you finish the sentence right there, you'll say the Hashanah that falls on Shabbos is the day that compromises the whole mission and message of Avodah.
Even though we're still doing an Avodah.
We're doing Avodah for Shabbos. We're not doing a Hashanah Avodah. We're doing a Shabbos Avodah.
If we're still doing Avodah for Shabbos.
Yeah.
And Avodah and.
Right. So the message that Avodah is important is there. The message of Avodah is important is there,
yeah.
But the fact that it doesn't affect Rosh Hashanah happens on its own, shows us that on that level we don't need.
But now that we have Aliyas Eilumus,
yeah.
And the Aliyas Eilumus covers something on Shabbos, right?
Okay.
And nevertheless we need to do Avodah. Is understood when there's Aliyas Eilumus of Shabbos, which through the Aliyas Eilumus we're doing the Pu'ula of Shofar. Comes out and we're going to do Avodah. We're also doing the Avodah of Shofar.
So that not. Okay, let's speak after the Shir. But the Kud is, what does Shofar is not our Avodah on Shabbos. It's Shabbos on its own. Mekacha v'kaima. That's the whole vart in Chassidus is the Mekacha v'kaima of Shabbos is what brings Shofar. Not our Avodah. That's what Rebbe brings B'kitzur in the beginning of Mem Tes. Right, the Take in Ara 8, Take Yisrael Meisifim Mikdushas HaShabbos. But that's not the Nekuda of Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. It's the Tainug that happens on its own.
So how do you explain the balance of the fact that it's Shlilas Piyam Shefer, but on the other hand, it's Tzanz Shabbos Mekacha V'kaima? Are we doing Avodah by not doing Shefer? And is that what's Geirim the Hamshach?
You're saying the Rebbe's Mahalach with the Mahalach of Chassidus Bichlal?
Like the fact that, yeah.
We'll come full circle at that. Okay. Now comes the Sich in Mem Tes. Right, the Ganze Sug in the first Sif, the Rebbe basically addresses the Sug as a whole. And in Beis, the Rebbe brings his Yisoidus Ekashayla, was is mit Avodas Adam. And here comes the Rebbe's Mahalach over here. Now, in this itself, it's something very interesting. Right, you look over here in Ara 19. So the Rebbe's Mitzayim, Ba'balak Hamon Re'egam Michtav Chafei Elul Shanazu. The Rebbe's Mitzayim to the letter of Chafei Elul. Right, so Shabbos was Chaf Gimel Elul. Chafei Elul, the second letter here, is from Motzei Shabbos Kodesh Slichas. It's the Motzei Shabbos letter. From Lamed Beis and on, the Rebbe would give out 2 letters before Rosh Hashanah and 2 letters Mishtam Klalim before Nisan. And the letters would be a binyan. The first letter, the Rebbe would speak the Inyan Mechlalos, and then the second letter usually would focus in on one within the Kudus and speak about it by Archave v'chol. Here, so the Rebbe gave out the first letter before Shabbos. By the Fabrengen, this didn't go into the Mugil, by the Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, when the Rebbe came to this part of the Sikha, the Rebbe said, und das ist der Chiddush, was man jetzt reden, auf was man gedruckt im Brief. That's in one of the Anachas. In another one of the Anachas, the Doti Mugge says even more, und was das die Nekude, was man reden, was man euch schreiben, in the second letter. Or it's very Pashtos, I'm not sure, I have to look in the amount when the second letter came out, but it's very shaykh that the second letter was already prepared before Shabbos. Though many times the second letter would be and built off the Sikha of Shabbos. I have to look at the dates when exactly happened. But it's possible that even mentioned that this thing being the Chiddush of the second letter over the first letter. So the first letter, the Rebbe speaks about Shabbos Bichlal, Shabbos Dikayar, what we learn from Shabbos for the entire year, very Geshmaki and Yom in the first letter. That the Rebbeim are Shabbos, and every Yid is Shabbos, and we have to be Mamshech Shabbos in the entire year. But by the Fabrengen, the Rebbe said, I'm not just going to speak about Shabbos on its own. I'm going to speak about how Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah Ahani, yeah, the lesson they're always using in the Sikhs, Ahani, one is poil on the next. Rosh Hashanah adds to Shabbos, Shabbos adds to Rosh Hashanah, how they work together. So this is in the Nikud that doesn't sign to this letter, the second letter. And here's something very interesting. Look on page 716 if you have the original Koivitz. It's not in the Hagoy's Koivitz, it's in this Koivitz. So on page 716, towards the end, so there's a Ha'ara on bottom, the fourth to the last Ha'ara. The Rebbe writes in the Ha'ara, Besser zu verstehen, or this is on the words on the beginning of the second part of the letter after the 3 stars. Sorry, the third part of the letter after the 3 stars. Besser zu verstehen, the Verbund for Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbe writes there, in the letter I'm going to explain what the Kesher Rosh Hashanah and Shabbos is. Beprotius yoiser, ubeoimek yoiser, ba'bola kamon, re'ei sichas Shabbos keis parshas nitzavim v'yelech shonazu. If you want to learn this Inyan, beprotius yoiser, ubeoimek yoiser, look at the Sichon. Just understand. B'chtavim klalim are el bnei Yisrael b'chol makim shehem. Right, it's letters for every single yid. These letters are yichid gans tif. You read the teichen of these letters. The teichen Rebbe gave to everybody. But then in the letter in the Ha'ara, and the Rebbe was very makbid the Ha'ara should come out. They once printed the Vichla Koli in English in the newspaper without the Ha'aras. So the Ha'aras weren't translated. The Ha'aras were printed in Lashon Kodesh. And the Rebbe, you print without the Marim Koimis, like you're printing in the Times, with the Marim Koimis in Hebrew. But the Marim Koimis have to come in every Michtav Klali. And the Mekayim say, the Rebbe says, look at the Sikha, you'll see it b'prat yisiyes or b'oimek yisiyes. B'prat yisiyes, you see that the letter is a few pages, the Sikha is much longer. But oimek yisiyes is, the Rebbe takes the Yonim in the letter and goes a sach tifer, noch tifer edargis. You see certain the Rebbe says in the Sikha, the Rebbe's finished, in the letter, the Rebbe's shoyla, the Rebbe goes a lot deeper in the Sikha. We'll be mitzaying some of those in Yonim. And nachazach, now the Merdike Hagoyes came out on this. And I think you look at the Hagoyes, there's a Rebbe Hagoyes here, but there's Kama V'Kama Hagoyes that you see, L'ch'eira, the Rebbe is drilling in this Nekuda of Avodah Sa'odam, how important it is and how integral it is to all the Mahalach of Sikha and the whole Mahalach of Rosh Hashanah Shechal B'Shabbos. The Olam learned the Sikha, parts of the Sikha, started the Sikha.
3 years ago. Last time.
Huh? 3 years ago, learned the Sikha. Well, now it's Totzach V'din Mitzalatzmei, Memela. That was the take of the whole introduction. That's the Peil Sadar Zayin B'Peil. Okay, so the Teichet B'Yum V'Chol of the Sikha is that it's all Avodah Sa'odam. There's Avodah Sa'odam of blowing shofar in a regular year. There's Avodah Sa'odam of not blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah Shechal B'Shabbos, and that's a greater Avodah than blowing shofar on a regular year. Those are 2 levels. And then there's a 3rd level. What's the 3rd level? So Lachar Kol Anal, all the Chassidus tells us that Rosh Hashanah Shechal B'Shabbos we don't blow, but that's B'Medina we don't blow. But Yonder Rosh Hashanah Shechal B'Shabbos B'Mikdash Hayu Toikin. And for Keret, the Mishnah doesn't tell us the Shlila you don't blow. It starts with Mikdash Hayu Toikin, or it's the mitzvah is Yeda, but Mikdash Hayu Toikin. Ava Loi B'Medina. So here comes the Shaila, B'Mikdash Hayu Toikin. So Al Pi Nigla Mikdash Hayu Toikin ain't Shabbos B'Mikdash. Al Pi Chassidus it's a little more complicated, because Al Pi Chassidus, if Shabbos is Mamshich, the Yonim of Rosh Hashanah, the Mikdash is the greatest Shabbos. Right? The Shabbos makes Mikdash is greater than anywhere else. It's the ultimate Shabbos. All the Dam Tes Malachas we have everywhere else is based off the Mikdash. So there, for sure we shouldn't have to blow shofar. So what's Chassidus Mevayer? The Take, the Inyan Tutzicha. In Mikdash we have access to such a high level. There's higher levels in Tainug, right? Pleasures, the Bligvul. There's a Ribi Tainugim a person can have, deeper levels of Tainug. And that level is Nimshach only in the base of Mikdash. And therefore they were Mamshechit. Now there's a difference between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni. Bayis Rishon, not only in the base of Mikdash they blew everywhere. Because the Tachanis Chacham only started, and Shavuos only started in the second base of Mikdash. Now what does it help you? So this is the first, in the time of the base of Mikdash, Bayis Rishon, this Giloi was attainable, you were able to access it, this higher level of Tainug everywhere. Because the Giloi base of Mikdash was Nimshach everywhere. Bayis Rishon. So therefore we blew shofar on Shabbos to be Mamshach higher level of Tainug. Bayis Sheni, we're only able to access it in the base of Mikdash itself, and therefore we blew shofar there. But now the Rebbe's Mahalich, the Rebbe has to come up with a new Mahalich for Beis Mikdash as well. Why? Because the regular Mahalich in Chassidus is Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, what we're Mamshech on a regular Rosh Hashanah is Nimshach on its own. So why in Beis Mikdash we're Tekeah? Because in the Beis Mikdash we can Mamshech something higher that's only through Tekeah Shofar. So we need Tekeah Shofar, and therefore the Shavuos doesn't get in the way, and Beis Mikdash therefore we blow Shofar on Shabbos. But according to the Mahalach here in the Sikha, that not blowing shofar is greater than blowing shofar, so it's also an avodah. So what are you coming and saying? That in the Beis Hamikdash, where we have access, we could attain a greater level that we can't be mamshich in the rest of the world? Fine. So come around the Beis Hamikdash, and blows nish shofar. Yeah? And you're not blowing shofar, will be mamshich something. If blowing shofar can be mamshich, not blowing shofar can zikr mamshich, because it's a greater avodah. So here we have to come to a third dargan avodah. Blowing shofar, not blowing shofar, and then blowing shofar in the Beis Hamikdash. Right, that's Betzim Malach. That's how the Rebbe comes to this guy. What are the three avodas? So the three avodas, the way it's in this Sikha, so Stam just saying it wasn't printed in the Kodesh, but that's Memshech to the Sikha, very important Geschmack to learn the following Sikha, the following week, Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. One of the unique things that happened that year on Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, the Rebbe Fabrein was the only time in the Siyas, the only time all the Rebbeim, the Rebbe Fabrein the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Bichlal, the Rebbeim didn't Fabrein on Rosh Hashanah, Mishgeret. They would say Mamorim by night, by day, but it was Maimer, that was it. The Rebbe was Fabrein the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but the Rebbe's Fabrein the second day of Rosh Hashanah was very, very bekitzer, much more bekitzer than all other Fabrein. It was a very small Fabrein. The Nigunim, and Zavart, a Sikha or two, was very, very kitzur farbring. Here, not only the second day, the Rebbe farbring the first day. It was in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the Rebbe farbracht. Finish Shachris, farbring. And the Rebbe kocht them, it's a Shabbos Dikiyar. The Rebbe farbring. So the Rebbe farbring the first day and the second day. There's a Mugadik Sikha that brings together the two Sikhas, which is a Hamshich. Some inyanim are a bit different than the way it's in this Sikha, but it clarifies certain inyanim that weren't fully clarified here, clarified in the next Sikha. So important to look there as well. So there's 3 dargas here. All the 3 dargas here are in Bittul. I'm saying that because it's important to realize when we're learning this Sikha, a lot of the inyanim, the Mahalach Klali in the Sikha, you see in many areas in Chassidus. Right? And I'll tell you 3 dargas in Chassidus. What's 3 dargas? Yeah. Mitzias, Bittul, Hecher from Beide. You learned any Maimer of the Rebbe, any Sikha, it's there. You'll end, Drai Mol Drai, but the Rebbe it's all about Drai. Chassidus Bechlal. But here, the conversation in the Sikha is completely elevated. The Rebbe starts at a very high place. On gate tifer, on nach tifer, and in each darga, the Rebbe goes darga lefnimi darga. Right, when you break down the muscle, we'll get to the second darga. You see in that darga itself, in one sif, the Rebbe is speaking about 3, 4, 5 levels, nach tifer, and then the last darga, nach tifer. We're talking about bittul because that's the core of the Avodah Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is that the Eibusher says, Tamlichoni aleichem, Yidin kom, and are nispatel to the Eibusher. That's where we're Mamlech the Eibusher. How does Hamalchus happen? When people come to the Melech, and they're mishtachve, and they accept upon themselves that you will be our king, and that's Mo'eder, the Ratzin Lemlucha by the king. So now, in this Bittul, there's 3 Eifanim in Bittul. The first Eifan in Bittul is Miblas Shofar. What's blazing Shofar? Blazing Shofar means that I come and I acknowledge that you're the king. I'm Tekeya. And we are Mamlich the Melech. That's great, right? Imagine everyone comes and everyone takes out their shofar. What is taking out shofar? Taking out shofar is the din of ishtachava. Taking out shofar means you are our king. This was the seder that everyone brings from the Rasag. Said this, right? That kein oisim hamlachim tchilas malchusam toikin lifneim bechatzoitzreis ubekroneis leidio lashmiya bechol makim ascholas malchusam. Interesting, those bechatzoitzreis. I'm getting worried over here, yeah. So that's their shtavit. On the one hand, this is complete bittul. But le'idach, there's something missing. What's missing? This comes the second darg. The second darg in bittul is that a person is that Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos. What happens on Shabbos? Aliyah So'ilumis. Without getting into the technical terms, Shabbos, we're standing in front of the Eibishter. Ka'avda kamimori ka'oim lifnei HaMelech. That's the whole chiddush. That's what Shabbos is over the days of the week, right? We know during the week we work 6 days a week. On Shabbos we don't work. So this says because on Shabbos you're standing in front of the king, you can't work. In the sense that you don't want to, you can't work. It's not shaykh. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to move. Any movement, any tnuah is a tnuah of mitzias. You're showing your mitzias. So back to the Shaila, and during the week the Eibusher is not here. The Eibusher is everywhere, every moment. So what's the difference? The difference is Shabbos we feel it. Shabbos it's nirgash in the Oilamis. There's less of a hell of a hester. Whereas later he says in the Sikh, not only less of a hell of a hester, there's a higher early key. These are what you could say the 2 levels in the second oifen. The first oifen in Sif, Gimel, and Dalid is that Betzim we're saying the same early key as Nimshach in the Welt. A regular Shana and a Shana on Shabbos. The difference is on Shabbos we feel it. Our eyes are open. And therefore, the Mittel Rebbe famously brings from a professor that the doifik, the pulse of a yid, is different on Shabbos. Right? So there's things that take place that actually change a person on Shabbos. So we sense it. Because we sense it, therefore there's a bittul there, because we sense we're in front of the king. Nach Tifer, it's not only that the same thing that exists during the week we feel on Shabbos, there's a higher early key. The early key during the week is an early key that we relate to, that gives us a place for our mitzvahs, Mali Kol Almin, the ear that's Nimshach in the Bria, is Labish in the Bria. On Shabbos, there's an ear that's higher than the Bria. When that ear is Niskala, it's not only that now we're standing face to face in front of the king that shows himself to us on Shabbos is Andre Kenik. Like there's Melech B'Sadr and Melech B'Cholei. It's an andere Kenning. The king on Shabbos comes with all his glory, with all the spheres, with all the inyanim, and therefore that is mevatel much more than during the week. So when we're standing in front of the king, you can't blow. It's not shaykh to blow. Now what's the fun in that? So here's a very interesting. So this is a certain hagah I wanted to bring out. You look over here on page 10 in the Hagahos. So first of all, something very interesting throughout the whole Sikha. You'll see this on the top of page 10. Right? I think it's a good 5, 6, maybe even more times throughout the Sikha. Every time it said Choil, page 8, also the fourth line, Shechol b'Choil b'mei HaShavua. You'll find the exact number. Right? When the Rebbe speaks about Yemoysa Choil and Shabbos Vayfen Klali, that's left in the bottom of page 10. The 6 times. We're speaking about Choil and Shabbos. It's Choil and Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah can't be on Yemoysa Choil. Rosh Hashanah Choil. There's no Choil. It's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Chol b'mei HaShavua. It's not one Inyan, one dig. But you see the Rebbe's deal. When the Rebbe brings that up in Inyan, Rosh Hashanah is Chol b'Shabbos. It's Chol b'mei HaShavua. But here, in the last ket, in the third ket of Sifei, Aval Kshe Yehudi. First of all, the Rebbe, I think there's a few places. Yeah, also 3 lines before, the Rebbe takes out the word Yehudi. And also over here, the next kat, Aval Kshe Yehudi, Kshe Magia L'Darga Kazu. Shabbato Metzias L'Gamre, Lo Yak Shemavat L'Atzim El Shabbato Be'etzem, Lo Yishayich Sheyitka B'Shoifer V'Yachers Al Abidul HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bo Yishtachve, Keivon She'ein Metzias Klal Zulasa Yisbarich, Ein Mi Sheyishtachve Ve'ein Mi Sheyiska B'Shoifer. It's a very big lesson. That's what I heard from someone who remembers the Rebbe saying something in this lashon. It's like, it's not that we don't blow shofar on Shabbos. There's nobody here to blow. Like, how could you blow if you don't exist? You're not here. How can you blow? Right? Which l'chayre, it brings out the vart very, very well. It's a line. It's a zavart. There's no person here, but the Rebbe crossed it out. And I think part of the nekuda is, because you're going to see a similar mechike in the third darga we'll get to soon. When you're learning the sikha, there could be a tos that what's going on in the sikha is the first level. There's the human being, the person is here on er blas shayfer. The second level and alachas kamakam, the third level, there's no you. There's no you, right? The human being is ganz in his spot. The only Metzias is here is the Metzias HaMelech. Und the Indian kilo tut sich auch mit Zadatzmai. But they're saying, no. You can't say that. Das nicht. Because if you say that, you're missing the whole Yesoid of the Sikha. The whole Yesoid of the Sikha is Avodas Ha'adam. Darga Aleph is Avodas Ha'adam. Darga Beis is Nachmer Avodas Ha'adam. And Darga Gimel is Nachmer Avodas Ha'adam. Now, the Avodas Ha'adam is in a very dakostical way. We have to understand what Avodah is. But you can't come to a place that you're saying Ein mi sheyishtach ve'ein mi sheyiska b'shoifer. Befeiru shifran im mitzer that's here. There is someone was blos nishefer. Not that there's nobody. Not Ein mi sheyishtach ve'ein mi sheyiska b'shoifer. Yesh li mishu she'ein mishtach and it doesn't blow shefer. That's the word. In other words, then they were talking about an experience. And the emes is, then in the Sikha, this word isn't fully, maybe it's not fully clear. In the letter, the Rebbe speaks this sprach very, very clear. The Rebbe there speaks about what happens on Shabbos. This is the second letter of Chafei Elul. So the Rebbe says, this is page 717. Sorry, page 718. Both starts at 717 and 718. Right, what is Shabbos? Shabbos shaft by Yidin, creates by a Yid the gefil of bittul zum Eibush in the Beirei Eilam. Shabbos, the Rebbe goes on the fourth to the last line of 717. Shabbos kritzt ein bei Yidin die Emun in Chiddush Eilam kisheshes yom masas shmeim esmaim esaretz. Tifer geret kedusha Shabbos leicht. It shines in the nefesh of every single Yid. It shaft by Yeder in den gefil as steht kam in Malke. We're talking about a sense. A person has a hergish. That's what happens on Shabbos. It's not that there's no person. There is a person. There's a person was filled, and this Gefühl gibt sich bei jeder Mensch, als steht kam in Malko in Anwesenheit von Melech, Malchim, Malchim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, zusammen mit dem vollständigen Bittel, was kommt natürlich, und das heißt Zustand von Oim Lifnei Melech. Right, that's the nekuda. Here you see dafka, sometimes in the letter, certain things are a little spelled out a bit more. The Farish, we're speaking about a sense that a person, it's an experience when a person, what happens when a person's in front of a king? A person all of a sudden experiences an overwhelming experience. What happens at that moment is, right, he almost doesn't experience anything. He completely loses himself. He can't talk, he can't anything, he can't even scream out, he can't do anything. He's in complete shock mode, right? So what happens? There is no person. On the one hand, you can say that the guy's not here, but he is here. This person has been influenced and has been affected in the most overwhelming way, in the most amazing, more than any other effect that could happen to this person. So Sedar Mensch, was there's in ganzen bottle to the Melech, over Mele, he's not shy to do anything, he won't do anything, there's nothing else other than just the Metzias HaMelech. That's the Darga base. Comes the Darga Gimel. Oh, sorry, before we get to Darga Gimel. Now, in Darga Beis, in Sif Dalid, he speaks about the Shnei Eifanim, Beis Eifanim that exist in Bittul. And he brings, on page 706, Oifna Aleph and Oifna Beis, then he brings Mesiras Nefesh, and then he brings Yechid on Etzem HaNeshama. Right, you read the flow of the it's very simple. There's one level and the second level, and the Rebbe brings different Eifanim to these two levels. What's important to understand, what the Rebbe is doing here is, each keta here, Kemat, is another stage, is Noch Tifer der Inyan. First, the Rebbe speaks about the Inyan of the two Dargis, Aleph and Beis. What's Eifen Aleph and Eifen Beis? One Eifen is that a person is Eved Melech. His whole Metzias is Eved, right? Well, that's not what we're talking about. Someone has no Metzias whatsoever. He's in Gansen. What is Metzias Eved of Melech? What's the issue? The Chisarin is, there's an Eved. He identifies as an Eved. He is a Metzias of an Eved. You can't say he's not here. In a way, this that the Melech is a Melech is only because he has an Am. Ein Melech b'lo Yam. Without an Am, there's no Melech. Without an Eved, there's no Odin. Right? He is that Eved. The second level is, there's no you. Sto Ein Zach. Sto the Odin. Sto the Melech. Fine. That's the first way the Rebbe says. Then the Rebbe brings a dogma Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh. Now it's more than understand when we say what's Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh, when a person gets Ibrik, is completely Moiser Nafshi. When a person's Moiser Nafshi, what is he saying? I have a Metzias, I don't have a Metzias. If he had a Metzias, he would do all he can to hold on to the Metzias. L'cheir, Mesiras Nefesh is telling us that he's already on the second level. That his Metzias is Mashlechai Minega, his Metzias is irrelevant. It's all about the Eibishter. Aber Hagufa could be a Metzias. He is Moiser his Nefesh. There's someone here that's giving up their Metzias. The Metzias, that's Mevatel. The Metzias. And then there's higher Mesiras Nefesh, so there's no Mesiras Nefesh. It's the Eibishter himself. Then comes the Rebbe Noch Tifer and says that there's Yechid and higher than Yechid. What's the Chiddush? The Pashtus, you hear about these two levels of Mesiras Nefesh, so you would have to put them in the Dargas HaNefesh. Where would you put them at? Right, in Samach Vav, Retter in Barichis, and Netter, many places. There's Chaya and there's Yechid. What's Chaya and Yechida in context of Mesiras Nefesh? We know the Lashon HaYedua as a Yid, Nishter Vil, and Nishter Ken Zayin Upgerissen von Eberstein. A Yid doesn't want and can't. Nishter Vil is Chaya. Nishter Ken is Yechida. Nishter Vil is like a rot. It's what I want. What I want to hear means a rotzein atzmi, like a rotzein of a son to a father. Kiben mishtadol b'sar aviv imei. It's like an ava atzmi. So rotzein atzmi. It's something. It's so important to me. I don't see life without it. That's how important it is to me. But at the end of the day, there's a point here of importance. It's important to me. It's something that I want. There's a tnuah. There's a meshicha. Yechida is what? Why can't I disconnect? Because it's who I am. Could I stop being me? A person cannot stop being themselves. I am who I am. So Yechida is, this is who I am. There's no tnuah. There's no pu'ula. There's no anything. So you're talking about two levels of Mesiras Nefesh. One, that there's far types of Metzias of the person here, an avoid of the person. And one there isn't. You would say Chaya and Yechid. The Rebbe no. The Rebbe says it's Yechida or Necher from Yechid. Because even Yechida, there's a Tnuah here. What's the Tnuah? So here there's an interesting Hagah, and you see it how in this Hagah the Rebbe get in the Inni Noch Tifer. In Yechida, Lechatchila, the way it was written is. Where's the part? What sif is it? Sif Dalet. The bottom of page 8. The last ketav yeshloimar in habitul b'mesiras nefesh lamitos yulamay lagam b'chinas hayechida ki habitul b'mesiras nefesh the yechida hu kemudgish b'shem yechida b'ifin yechida l'yachtach hainu pe'ula shel. So they wrote pe'ula shel his achdus im HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'meila nirgash adayin eze inyan shel metzias. The Rebbe changed it to hainu pe'ula shel l'yachtach es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what's wrong. L'yachtach es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So first of all, what does this new thing even mean? It's words l'chayr, it's oisius without hasbara. But then also, like, what's the mechika? What's the change? You read it before the Rebbe erased it. What does it say? There's yechid l'yachtach. What's that? There's a pu'ula here of his achdus im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does his achdus im HaKadosh Baruch Hu mean? A person becomes one with the Eibishter. There's a yid. There's the Eibishter. There's his achdus im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the shlil. So there's a pu'ula, there's a tnuah here of his achdus. The Rebbe is going tiffer. That's not the chesaron of the second level. There's his achdus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because we're talking about yechida here. Yechida is not his achdus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yechida is, what's a yechida? Yechida is nitzutz boira. The yechida, the Eibishter is shoyre in the yechida of a yid. Yechida is one with the Eibishter. Nishter can sign up for the Eibishter. There's no pu'ula here of his achdus. So, if you answer the house, then what's missing? So then what's the issue? It's a whole different word. Pu'ula shel yachtach es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here the word is, and Toldos Nun Beis, and Nachplatz, the Rebbe at the Inyan Meir Barichis, you're right. Yechida at the core is, it's really, I'm one with the Eibishter. I'm connected to the Eibishter. I don't have to do anything. But at the end of the day, the yechida drikt sich eis in a tnuah. There's a tnuah here. It's not something that just is. It doesn't express itself. There's an expression to it. What's the expression? Right, so we know, what's the avoid of the yechida throughout our day? Anyone that learned Kuntas Yonish there's a chassidus, right, which is all about, the chassidus is the yechida of Torah, and the nasi is the yechida of Klal Yisrael, the Chol Mashiach is the yechida. So what's yechida? What's the avoid of Yechida? Moidani. Right, and that's the word of Moidani, Farm Negovasser. It's not that we do it then because there's no Shem Hashem. We could do it before Negovasser, our garnish kinish, Metam Zayin, the Yechida for Nayid, the Moidani for Nayid. Moidani is nothing. When does a person say Moidani? Completely groggy, he's half alive, he doesn't know what's going on with himself. He's not Moidani. Right? In other words, you don't have to have any achon, any tachtin chassidus for that Moidani. So with their chlal, so that's chassidus, and many sichas and amorim, that's Moidani, that's in the Kodesh. Over sof, Moidani, you're saying words, you're doing something. Right? You can't compare Moidani to the actual moment that a person wakes up, and there's mamish nothing. Right? And there's no, so there's far there's a tnuah, there's something to hold on to, there's a handle here. Mashenkin hecher from them, l'mayla mizeh, it's etzem haneshama she'en l'kreisa b'shem. Chamish Hashem is nikru la. Yechida is also a name. There's a tnuah, there's something to hold on to. It's a hergish. Mashenkin etzem haneshama is the fact that I have a neshama, the etzem of neshama itself without any expression whatsoever. And this is all still the second level. Etzem haneshama, higher than Yechida, higher than everything else, is nar the zweite darge. Comes the third darge. What the dritte inyan? The dritte inyan is, and this is a whole inyan b'fnei atzmei. We just have a few minutes. So the third darge is shlilas hachiyuv and shlilas hashlila. There's a person that's tekeah for the melech. He recognizes the king. He's mispatel to the king. He blows shofar. That's a tnuah of bittul. On the other hand, the fact that he's blowing shows that there's someone here that can blow and has the ability to express himself on some level. Fine. A hecher darge is someone's in front of the king and the mitzvahs of the king completely overwhelms him. There's nothing else here but the king, not him, not his shofar, or there's a him and a shofar, but they can't express themselves whatsoever. Because the king completely takes over the whole mitzvah. That's the ultimate bittul l'chayr. He says no. The fact that he's standing in front of the king and cannot blow shofar, and if he would blow shofar, it would be mechvi mochi kami malka chayav misa, shows that there is a nekuda of mitzvahs here. What's the mitzvahs? There's a mitzvahs that we have to be shoylo. Right? This chevraman, And the guy himself recognizes it, the guy himself realizes this. He sees a tnuah of Tkiyah Shofar, a tnuah of Mechli B'Machig, as a steer to the king, and therefore it cannot exist in front of the king. So L'Poyel, that Mitzias is totally batal. That Mitzias is not expressed any which way. It's put on the side, right? He buries it 6 feet under. You can't access it. But if we would be able to speak to the subconscious of this guy and say, one second, if you would blow shofar right now, blow shofar, Mr. Meshugeh, Vikerach Blazim shofar. Blazim shofar is the biggest steer to the king. So kumt ois that there's something here besides for the melech. There is a mitzias here, which the only way we could deal with it is by repressing it, by not accessing it, by going against it. So there's a shlil of mitzias. Even soiviv is malchom. Soiviv is kol omin. It has to be shoylo of the world. But then mitzad atzmus yizbarich. Valderech zein avodas adam. There's a darge of shlilas achiv and shlilas ashlila. An important point that he goes through with mahalach of the whole sikha is that there's everything is there's the way it's lamaila and the way it's lamata. The Eibush there has there's three dargas in the Oyer Liki, the Oyer Ashayach Loilamis, the Oyer that's moved from the Oilamis, and the Oyer that's mushlo from Shlila. Atzma say. Now there's about the person, there's the darga of the Nefesh, you could say Yechida and lower, which is some further types of Tnuah, of some level of Metzias, that has to be Nisbatel. There's a Tnuah of total Bittul, and then there's a Tnuah, it's not even Bittul. Right? He calls it Yisrael Kuchabrichu Kulachad. When you get to this Inyan, there's a Ara 47, a very Yesodistika Ara where the Rebbe learns the Inyan in Samach Vav of Shlilas Achiv and Shlilas Ashlila. Right, so already in the beginning of Samach Vav, Erete Inyan from Shlilas Achiv and Shlilas Ashlila, and that's Musi Yisbarach. But then in Achodesh, in the Hamshich, especially in Vayoylech, he adds a word. So Derech we learn as one Inyan, but the Rebbe Betzim breaks it down to two Eifan. There's two ways to understand Shlilas Achiv and Shlilas Ashlila. Right, Chassidus says that the Eibush there is Shlilas Achiv, Shlilas Ashlila, meaning you can't have a Kesher Chiyuvi with him, and you can't have a Kesher Shlili. You can't understand him, and you can't not understand him. Right? The Eibush there doesn't relate to the world, and he doesn't not relate to the world. So what does that mean? What does Shlilas Ashlila mean? So there's two Biyurim here, that on one hand, one builds up to the next, the second dialogue is much deeper than the first, but the premise and the case, they're really, in a way, they're the complete opposites from each other. The first level of Shlilas Ashlila is like this. What does Shlilas Ashlila mean? So he says, Aleph, Shloi Shayich Leimer Olav Shul Mushlo Me'advarim Shalamata B'li Erech Imenu Kevan She'enei Shayich Aleim Klal K'moi Shloi Shayich Lish Leinin HaMishlosh Menegel Esvar HaSichlos. Now the Rebbe brings a dogma in Tanya. A person will come and say, wow, this guy is such a genius. He said an amazing svara, amazing vart. You know how amazing the vart is? Ich kann es nicht antappen, I can't touch it. Everyone start laughing. What are you saying? Right? Mainly you're speaking about things that are somewhat physical, exist in the world of the five choshim. You're trying to explain how fire works, how a voice, right? Things that can be nitfas in one of the five senses, and you're saying it's not, you could hear it, you could smell it, you could touch it, but you can't touch it. Fine, so there's the havon to what you're saying, but you can't touch it, you're being shoyl or something. When you say about a svara sichlis, that you can't touch it, what are you saying? It doesn't make any sense, right? It's so mufrich that to be shoylo is litzonis. So it's mushlo to be shoylo because it's so mushlo. So it's not that shlila is mushlo. It's not that it's taken mushlo. That the thing of shlila is mushlo. It's mushlo. Why is shlila mushlo? Because it's tachlis a shlila. Right? If you could use Oisius, it's in of kamos. There's chiyuv, right? There's shlila. It's mushlo. Now, when too much shlila is a shlila, we're basically saying, when I come and say you can't touch sound, okay? I hear what you're saying. I'm telling you, Nachtifer, you can't touch an idea. So I'm going to laugh at you because what's the shaykhis? But what am I laughing? Why am I laughing? I'm laughing because it's that far, right? Touch from sound is this far, and touch from seichel, it's a whole other world, right? It's a whole different world, but it's much further. So that's the first mahalach in Shlilas HaShlila. The second mahalach in Shlilas HaShlila, in a way, is pung for a keren. Right? She'eini mugdar ba'ageda d'shlila u'mushlo mizeh v'lachein efsher sheyiyu gam advarim she'einam be'erech ilav v'lashna yadua in Samach Vav shlilas achiyah v'shlilas ha'shlila v'meila yesh b'yakil. What's shlilas ha'shlila? It's not a technical shlila. I can't say shlila because it's so laughable. But it's not that it's not true. It's true. It's just inappropriate. It's the wrong thing to say. It's like a shema. It's mushlim shema toyer. What are you saying, shlila? Oh, so you're saying it's not shlila? No, it is shlila. But you can't say that. It's stupid to say that because it's not mushlim. The second oifen is you're wrong. You can't say that it's mushlim because shlila sachiyuv, shlila shlila. He's removed from everything. He has as much of a shaykhis to shlila as he has to chiyuv. What is there? There's only him. The shav of chiyuv and shlila is there's a relationship here. How does A relate to B? A relates to B, or A doesn't relate to B. Right? You have chayr that walk around. They're always thinking about people who think about them. Right? But there are the people that no one thinks about them. It's there works together. Then you have chayr was pfeifen on. Ich pfeif Allah. Yeah, no, Chaim, and he's getting up, and he's pfeifing on the ganze Welt. The one he's pfeifing on. It's a chain. You're pfeifing on the other guy, right? There's other guy you're pfeifing on. Then there's Zam Matziv, there's nobody else. It's not pshat, I care about you, I don't care about you. I'm relating to you, or I'm disassociating myself from you. There's only zich, there's only the zach alein. There's only the etzem alein. And then what? Then the etzem has b'chira. Now he decides. Should I relate to the world? Should I not relate to the world? Which, when you think about it, really means, should there be a world that I relate to? Or should there be a world I don't relate to? Or there shouldn't be a world that I do or don't relate? Right? All these things, it's all one big pot of choices that are all coming, it's all one good, there's him. And that's the word over here. And that's what we're trying to say over here. There is shofar, there isn't shofar. There's a person, there isn't a person. It's all the same. It's all the same. He was machet. There should be a person. Oner zal blazen. Right, I'll just finish with this last hago, which is similar to previous hago in Sif Beis, where also a very stark line that finishes the word. The Rebbe doesn't accept it. Page 14, at the end of Sif Zayin, which mamash seems to be the, I wouldn't say the Lomazeh, but mamash the makbil of that vart in Sif Hey, right? So the last vart in Sif Zayin on page 14, it says that the person nafshi kara b'cheini margish afilu nafshi kara kim shapulu t'kashem nas meilel. So what do they write? So what happens on this level of kiyah shofar? Ki'ilu noimar shakadosh baruch hu tekiyah b'shofar al yidei pulazi shel Yehudi shehu kol achadim kutub. Right? That's what they took it. What's happening on this level? There's one thing. Still the kenega lane. What does he want? He wants there should be a human being and there should blow shofar. So that's what happens. So Mamela, everyone's just pawns in his b'chira, in the way in Atzmos Yisbarich. So really, it's the aim shor tekeh b'shofar through us with the shofar. So we're an expression of him. The shofar is an expression of him, but he's blowing shofar. The Rebbe doesn't accept this vart. No, it's not tekeh b'shofar. It's not tekeh b'shofar. Because if the aim shor is tekeh b'shofar, weiter is missing the whole vart. The yid is tekeh b'shofar. But the Yid sees himself as kul achadim kutchabrichu to such a sense that it's all, everything that's going on is all an expression of the Eibishter. Not that the Eibishter is blowing, we're blowing, but who are we? Kul achadim kutchabrichu. That's the nikud over here. The vard ultimately ends up being the same vard. Like, you have in Mulkut Vav, you talk about Shefer Gadol. The Rebbe says, what's that? You talk about Shefer Gadol. What's with Avodas Adam? We're blowing in a way of Yitaka, right? That a person feels that he's a oiv, then in Nidach, and so they're blowing. So, Vinish the Vart ends up coming the same Vart, but the Shaila is, what's the emphasis? There, in that Maimer, the emphasis is Yitaka Shefer Gadol, the Maimer look at Vav. The Vart is the Eibishter, is the Tekiyah, and we're nobodies. But here, that Gosh is, we're talking about Margish, or Shan Shlois B'Shabbos, is the Atachlis HaAvodah. So any mashmos, and you see this in other small Hagoyos throughout, any mashmos that takes away from this Mahalach, from this Vart, of Avodah Sa'adam, it says, no, you're missing the Vart, it's Avodah Sa'adam. Anyway, it's interesting, the Poil in the Sicha, in the Mitzvah Klali, the Rebbe doesn't go to the third Darga, the Rebbe stays at the second Darga. The Hira of the third darga here in the Sikha, the Rebbe brings us the Hira of the second darga in the Mitzvah Klali, which Tzarech Iyun, Haka the same Hira fit for both. But you see small changes in the Hira when you get to tzedakah, right? By the Rebbe, every top, Maila indicates that the deepest in Yonim, the Hira is how to give tzedakah, which is a very practical Indian. But you see small diyukim and the difference, the Talmud Chacham, to see the nafkamine, how you understand this word. Now, the Vart of the Alter Rebbe, the second Vart of the Alter, the Gleich the Vertel, in other words, till the Rebbe, so Taka, Rosh Hashanah b'Shabbos, the Kugel doesn't do anything. It's because, right, the Inyan, because there is no Tkiyah Shefer, right? There is no. But now the Rebbe's whole mahalach is that Taka, the Avodah of Shabbos, is right. There's a Avodah of Tkiyah Shefer on Shabbos. Taka by now. What's Shachas Kugel? I don't know. Right. But that's in the Kudah. The Kudah is this is the whole Adgosh. The unser Avodah tut up der Inyan. Now, if I understand what's higher than Etzem Neshama of Kol Achad, so I think in the next Sikh there's a little more oisius, the Rosh Hashanah Sikh, how Kol Achad is higher than Etzem Neshama. Hamshich, I think we're fine. Negel Lemaise, so it's American to see how there's a much American earlier of Leibniz to this. And first of all, you should know as American Bachrim that we want that we invite you to visit some 70. Very, very wanted. And not just you wanted, Rebbe the Ferenc as Favelo, and the Rebbe Geret, the Brichs Abanim some 70 Bachrim was the Americans some 70 Bachrim, 22, 23, 24-year-olds. These are the Bachrim some 70. It's your shul, it's your